Wu opened her eyes to white light. Her head pounded. The last thing she remembered was the survey shuttle, the bright flash, then nothing. Now she lay on a smooth platform in a room with walls that glowed softly. Everything looked clean and strange. She sat up slowly. Her uniform was still on, but all her tools were gone. No scanner, no communicator, no emergency kit. Even her boots were missing. The floor felt cold against her bare feet. The room was small, maybe 4 meters square. One wall was transparent, showing a corridor beyond. Strange creatures moved past, walking upright but shaped like nothing from Earth. Some had scales, others had skin that shimmered like oil on water. None looked human. Wu stood and walked to the transparent wall. She pressed her hand against it, solid, probably reinforced polymer. She studied the edges, looking for seams or weak points. Her grandfather always said to observe everything. Understanding comes from looking, he would tell her in the shipyards where she grew up. A door appeared in the wall across from her, sliding open with a soft hiss. 2 creatures entered. They stood tall on 2 legs, covered in green scales with golden eyes that blinked sideways. They wore uniforms with symbols she didn't recognize. "The human is awake," one said. The words came from a device on its chest, translating. "Finally wants to see this one," the second creature gestured. "Come." Wu considered refusing, but what would that achieve? She needed information. She needed to understand where she was and why. She followed them into the corridor. They walked through passages filled with aliens of every shape. Some glanced at her with curiosity. Others ignored her completely. The guards led her to a large room filled with screens and equipment. A creature stood at the center, tall and thin with 4 arms and a head like a praying mantis. Its eyes were huge and multifaceted. "Subject Wu, human female, age 28, the creature said, reading from a floating display. "Mass, 62 kilograms, height, 165 centimeters, no natural armor, no venom production, no electromagnetic capability, no enhanced regeneration." The creature's mandibles clicked. Disappointing. "Where am I?" Wu asked, keeping her voice steady. "The research station Quantum Meridian. I am for the Galactic Coalition. You were collected from your survey mission for evaluation." "Collected, you mean captured." Waved an arm dismissively. "Semantics. Your species recently achieved faster-than-light travel. This triggered our protocols. All new species must be evaluated, cataloged, tested." "Tested for what?" "Survival capability, combat worthiness, contribution potential to the coalition." Moved closer, studying her with those huge eyes. "Your species is soft, fragile. You lack any notable biological advantages. I have reviewed your history files. You wage war with projectile weapons and chemical explosives. You require tools for everything. Without your technology, what are you? Wu felt anger rising but pushed it down. Anger wouldn't help. We're adaptable. Adaptable, repeated as if tasting the word. Many species claim this, few prove it. Another creature entered the room. This one looked like it was made of living crystal, geometric and glowing from within. It moved with precise, deliberate steps. Commander acknowledged. The human specimen is prepared for trial, asked. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. Yes, Commander, though I predict failure. Humans are tool-dependent. Without weapons, they are harmless. Turned those crystalline facets toward Wu. You will undergo the combat trial tomorrow. 10 minutes in the arena against automated defense drones. Survive, and your species earns consideration for full coalition membership. Fail, and humanity will be classified as a protected primitive species. What does that mean, protected primitive? Wu asked. It means your people will be confined to your home system, monitored, restricted from deeper galactic interaction. For your own safety, you understand. You'll cage us. We will protect you from dangers you cannot handle, corrected. Many species require such protection. There is no shame in it. Wu's jaw tightened. And if I request equipment for this trial, weapons? His mandibles clicked again, almost like laughter. If you need tools to survive, that proves our point exactly. You are weak without technology. The trial is in 6 hours, said. Use that time to prepare yourself mentally. Many find meditation helpful before death. The commander turned and left without waiting for response. The guards escorted Wu back to her cell. The door sealed behind her with a solid click. She stood in the center of the room, processing everything. 6 hours, one trial, the future of humanity riding on her survival. She walked slowly around the cell, examining every surface. The walls were smooth, probably one-piece construction. The transparent barrier showed no visible seams. The sleeping platform was molded from the same material as the walls, but the floor was different. Wu knelt down, running her fingers along the floor. It wasn't one piece. It was made of plates, each about half a meter square. She could feel the seams where they joined. The metal was cool, probably titanium alloy based on the weight and density. Standard construction for space stations. She pressed her thumbnail into a seam, feeling the edge. There was a tiny gap, maybe a millimeter. The plates were held in place by pressure and interlocking edges, not welded. Probably designed that way for maintenance access. Wu sat cross-legged on the floor, placing her hands flat on the surface. She could feel a slight vibration, the hum of the station's systems running through the structure. She closed her eyes, letting her other senses sharpen. Temperature differentials. One plate felt slightly cooler than the others. She moved to it, pressing her cheek against the metal. Yes, definitely cooler. This one must be near a cooling duct or waste disposal system. Repeated temperature changes would stress the metal, create microscopic fractures. A voice came from her left. "You talking to the floor now?" Wu looked up. The transparent wall showed another cell beside hers. A man sat there, Korean like her, maybe mid-30s. His uniform marked him as a pilot. "I'm Wu, a fighter pilot captured 3 days ago during a patrol." He moved closer to the barrier between their cells. "I saw them bring you in. You know about the trial." "They told me. 10 minutes against combat drones." Nodded grimly. "I watched 2 others go through it. Both species with natural weapons, claws and venom, both failed. The drones are fast and heavily shielded." "What happened to them?" "They lived. The trial isn't meant to kill, just to test limits. But they failed. Their species got classified as protected primitives." Wu looked back at the floor plate. "They think we're weak because we use tools." "Aren't we? Without guns, without ships, what chance do we have?" She smiled slightly, running her fingers along the cool plate's edge. "They don't understand. Tools aren't a weakness. They're how we survive." She glanced at. "How much do you know about metallurgy?" "Not much. Why?" "Because I'm going to need 6 hours and a lot of patience." Wu positioned herself at the edge of the cool plate, finding where the stress would be greatest. "And I need you to keep watch. Tell me if guards come close." "What are you planning?" Wu pressed down with her full weight, angling her force along the seam. "They want to see what humans are without weapons. I'm going to show them. We don't need weapons, we make them." She began to work, her mind already calculating angles, stress points, and fracture lines. The metal would resist, but metal always had rules. Physics always worked, and Wu knew both very well. Somewhere above, reviewed her file again, confident in his assessment. Somewhere else prepared the arena, certain of the outcome. Neither understood that humanity's greatest weapon was already at work. Not strength, not speed, but the absolute refusal to accept that any problem was truly unsolvable. Wu pressed her weight against the floor plate's edge. Nothing happened. The metal held firm. She shifted position and tried again. Still nothing. "This is going to take a while," she muttered. "What exactly are you doing?" asked from his cell. "Creating a stress fracture. Metal fatigues when you apply repeated force at specific points. If I can weaken the seam enough, I can separate this plate from the others." "And then what?" "Then I shape it into something useful." Leaned against the barrier between their cells. "You're going to make a weapon from the floor, with your bare hands, in 6 hours. 5 hours and 40 minutes now," Wu corrected. She changed position again, applying pressure at a different angle. My grandfather worked in the shipyards for 40 years. He taught me that metal isn't solid, it's crystalline. It has grain structure, weak points, patterns. If you understand the pattern, you can work with it instead of against it. She moved to a new spot on the plate, pressing down with both hands. This plate is titanium steel composite, probably 60% titanium, 40% steel. Good for space construction because it's light and strong, but it's also ductile, which means it can deform under stress. I'm watching a metallurgy lesson while we're prisoners, said, but he sounded interested despite himself. Wu smiled slightly. Guard coming. Glanced down the corridor. Two of them, those scale ones. They're just walking past, though, not looking this way. Good. Wu kept working, methodical and patient. Press, hold, release. Press, hold, release. Each time at a slightly different spot along the seam. I'm creating microfractures. They're too small to see, but they propagate through the material. After enough repetitions, they'll connect. An hour passed. Wu's arms ached from the constant pressure. Sweat dripped down her face, but she could feel a difference now. The plate had the tiniest amount of give when she pressed on it. It's working, she said softly. I can't see any change, observed. You won't, not yet. The changes are happening at the molecular level. She wiped her forehead with her sleeve. Tell me about the arena. What did you see when those others went through the trial? Thought back. Circular space, maybe 100 meters across. The floor is solid metal. There are a few pillars scattered around, probably for cover. The drones come from openings in the walls. How big are the drones? About a meter in diameter. Spherical. They float using some kind of anti-gravity. Each one has an energy shield that glows blue when active. They've got plasma cutters for weapons, and these extending arms that can grab. Plasma cutters, Wu repeated, still working on the plate. Those burn at high temperature but have short range. The drones would need to get close to use them effectively. They do. They surround you, coordinate their attacks. The tried to fight them with claws. He was fast, but the shield stopped him. The used venom, but it just splashed off the shields. Wu paused in her work, thinking. Shields are energy fields. They're designed to stop energy weapons and fast-moving organic attacks. But a solid blade, moving at the right speed with the right angle. She resumed pressing on the plate. Shields have to allow some penetration or they'd block air molecules and suffocate the user. There's always a threshold. You're assuming you can make a blade good enough to penetrate military-grade shielding. I'm assuming I can make a blade good enough to find a weak point in that shielding. Wu shifted her position again. Her fingers found a spot where the plate seemed fractionally looser. There, the crack is spreading. 2 hours had passed. Wu's hands were red and sore. She breathed on the metal, letting her warm breath condense on the cold surface. The moisture beaded and ran along invisible fracture lines, showing her where the metal was beginning to separate. "Clever," said, watching the technique. Temperature differentials help. The cold metal and warm breath create expansion and contraction. Wu followed the moisture lines with her fingers, applying pressure exactly where the cracks ran deepest. This plate is near the waste disposal system. It gets cold when waste is processed, then warms back to room temperature. That cycle has been running for months, maybe years. The metal is already fatigued. I'm just helping it along." She placed both hands on the plate and pushed down with all her strength. Something shifted, a barely audible click. "Did you hear that?" Wu asked. "Guards coming again," warned. Wu immediately moved to her sleeping platform, sitting casually as if resting. Two guards walked past, the same reptilian ones from before. They glanced into her cell but saw nothing suspicious. A human sitting on a bench. Nothing worth reporting. When they were gone, Wu returned to the floor. The plate now had visible movement when she pressed on it. The seam had separated by perhaps 2 millimeters. 3 hours left, noted. More than enough. Wu worked her fingers into the gap. The metal edge was sharp, cutting into her skin slightly. She ignored the sting. Carefully, she began to lever the plate up, using her own body weight as the counterforce. The plate resisted. She adjusted her angle, finding better leverage. The gap widened, 4 millimeters, 6, 10. With a sudden pop, one corner of the plate came free. "Yes," Wu breathed. She worked the other corners, gradually freeing the entire plate from its setting. It was heavy, maybe 8 kilograms. She lifted it carefully, examining it in the light. The plate was roughly square, 40 centimeters on each side. Too large for a practical blade. She needed to reduce it. "Now comes the hard part," she said. "That wasn't the hard part," asked. Wu carried the plate to the sleeping platform. The platform's edge was a 90-degree angle, hard and stable. "I need to shape this into a blade. That means I need to cut it, fold it, compress it, all without any tools except what's in this room." She positioned the plate on the floor, then raised the sleeping platform's edge above it. "This is going to be loud. When the guards come, distract them if you can." "How am I supposed to distract guards?" "I don't know, have a medical emergency. Exercise loudly. Use your imagination." Wu lifted the platform as high as she could, then brought it down hard on the edge of the floor plate. The sound rang through the cell like a bell. Immediately started coughing dramatically, making choking sounds. Wu struck the plate again and again. Guards appeared, concerned about's coughing fit. He gasped and wheezed, pointing at his throat. One guard opened his cell door to check on him while the other watched Wu. She sat on her platform, the floor plate hidden beneath it, looking tired but harmless. "You are well?" the guard asked. "Water," gasped. "Need water, throat dry." The guard brought him water, drank slowly, buying time. Eventually, the guards left, satisfied there was no real problem. "Good work," Wu said. She pulled the floor plate out and examined it. The repeated impacts had started to deform one edge, flattening it. "See, the metal is responding to force. Now I just need to do this about 1,000 more times." She worked steadily, striking the plate, rotating it, striking again. Gradually, a shape began to emerge. The square plate became elongated, narrowing at one end. Wu used the platform edge to create a taper, making one side thinner than the other. 2 hours remained. Her arms felt like they were on fire. Every impact sent vibrations through her bones, but the blade was taking shape. She used the corner of her cell where 2 walls met to work on the edge. Dragging the metal across the corner at a consistent angle, she created a basic cutting edge. The sound was terrible, a screech that made wince. "Oh, they're going to hear that," he said. "Let them hear. They'll see me rubbing metal on a wall. They won't understand what I'm actually doing." Wu kept working, her movements practiced and precise. People see what they expect to see. They expect a frightened human counting down to her trial. They don't expect engineering. The blade's edge grew sharper. Wu tested it carefully with her thumb. It could cut, though it wasn't perfect. The metal was work-hardened from all the impacts, making it stronger. She used her prison uniform sleeve to wrap the handle end, giving herself a better grip. 1 hour left. Wu examined her work. The blade was about 35 centimeters long with a single sharp edge and a reinforced spine. It wasn't beautiful. The surface was and uneven. But it was balanced, it was sharp, and it was deadly. "You actually did it," said, staring at the weapon. "Not done yet." Wu used condensation from her breath to clean the blade, wiping it carefully. She tested the flex. Good spring tension, not brittle. She checked the edge again, finding spots that needed more work. The cell corner served as her final grinding stone. Wen's voice came over the speaker, announcing 30 minutes until the trial. Wu held a finished combat blade. She looked at it with the critical eye of someone who knew it could be better with proper tools and time, but also knew it was good enough for what she needed. "Hide it," urged. "Don't let them see until you're in the arena." Wu slid the blade under her sleeping platform. She sat down, controlling her breathing, letting her heart rate slow. Her hands were bleeding from a dozen small cuts. Her arms trembled with exhaustion, but her mind was clear. "Why are you smiling?" asked. "Because they're about to learn something important about humans," Wu said. "We don't accept limitations. Every problem has a solution. They gave me a locked room and 6 hours. I gave myself a weapon. That's what we do. That's what we've always done. Guards appeared at her door. Time for trial. Wu stood, palming the blade and hiding it against her arm under the loose sleeve of her uniform. She walked toward her future, calm and ready. Behind her, the empty space where a floor plate used to be marked the place where human ingenuity had turned prison into workshop. Would review the security footage later and finally understand. But by then, everything would have changed. The guards escorted Wu through corridors filled with watching aliens. News of the human trial had spread. Dozens of species lined the passages, curious to see what the soft-bodied humans could do. Most of their expressions, as alien as they were, clearly showed doubt. Wu kept the blade pressed flat against her inner arm, hidden by her sleeve. Her heart beat steady. She had trained herself long ago not to panic under pressure. Panic made you sloppy. Panic made you dead. They entered a vast chamber. The arena spread before her just as had described. A circular floor of dark metal, 100 meters across. 4 pillars rose from the surface at even intervals, each about 3 meters tall. Observation decks ringed the upper levels, already packed with alien spectators. Commander stood on a raised platform overlooking the arena. The crystalline being's facets caught the light, casting rainbow patterns across the floor. Subject Wu announced. The voice echoed through the chamber. You stand here representing your species. The trial is simple. Survive 10 minutes against 3 combat drones. The drones will increase in aggression as time passes. If you survive, humanity earns consideration for coalition membership. If you fail, your species will be classified and restricted. Do you understand? I understand, Wu called back. Do you have any final requests? Wu almost laughed. Final requests, as if she were already dead. No requests. Then let the trial begin. The guards left the arena. A barrier shimmered into place around the perimeter, sealing her inside. Wu walked to the center, her bare feet silent on the cold metal. She let her sleeve fall back, revealing the blade. Gasps came from the observation decks. "Oh, the human has a weapon," someone shouted. His voice cut through the noise. "Halt the trial. How did the subject acquire a weapon? She was searched and monitored." Wu held the blade up for all to see. "I made it from the floor of my cell while your guards watched me." Silence fell over the arena. His voice came over the speakers, shrill with disbelief. "Impossible. That is fabricated metal. You had no tools." "I had physics," Wu said simply. "I had understanding of material properties. I had 6 hours and motivation. That's all I needed." His crystalline form seemed to pulse with light. "This is irregular. The trial parameters did not account for manufactured weapons." "You said humans rely on tools," Wu called out. "You said without our technology we're weak. But making tools is our nature. This blade is as much a part of what humans are as your crystal structure or mandibles. If you want to test what humans can do, this is what we do." Silence stretched, then spoke again. "The trial will proceed. The presence of a simple blade will not significantly alter the outcome. Deploy the drones." 3 openings appeared in the arena walls. The combat drones emerged, floating smoothly into the space. They were exactly as had described. Spherical bodies, 1 meter in diameter, hovering 2 meters above the floor. Blue energy shields flickered around each one. Wu moved toward the nearest pillar, putting solid material between herself and the drones. She held the blade in a reverse grip, edge facing out. Her grandfather had taught her basic blade work in the shipyards. "Ships have sharp edges everywhere," he'd said. "Know how to move with a blade or you'll cut yourself before any enemy touches you." The drones spread out, triangulating her position. Their sensors swept the arena, painting her with invisible beams. Wu watched their movement patterns. They didn't rush. They were programmed to be methodical. The first drone approached from her left. An arm extended from its body, tipped with a glowing plasma cutter. The orange flame hissed in the air. Wu stayed still, watching. The drone moved closer, closing the distance. At 3 meters she moved. Not toward the drone, but sideways, using the pillar as cover. The drone adjusted, following her movement. Its shield rippled as it passed near the pillar's edge. That ripple, that was important. Wu circled the pillar, keeping it between herself and the drone. The machine followed, patient and relentless. Its 2 companions flanked from other angles, boxing her in. She studied each one, noting how their shields interacted with solid objects. The energy field had to flex to avoid the pillars. Where it flexed, it weakened. The second drone attacked, extending its own plasma cutter. Wu dropped low, rolling under the strike. The superheated blade passed through the space where her head had been. She came up running, heading for open ground. The drones pursued. They were fast, but they had momentum to manage. Wu changed direction suddenly, her bare feet gripping the metal floor. The drone's overshoot had to correct. That delay gave her seconds. She needed to understand these machines better. Running wouldn't win. She had to damage them. But how do you damage something wrapped in an energy shield? The third drone cut her off, forcing her back toward the first 2. They were hurting her, limiting her movement. Smart programming. Wu let them think it was working. She moved where they expected, retreating toward the arena's edge. Then she stopped retreating. She charged directly at the nearest drone. The machine didn't expect this. Its programming was built on prey behavior, on targets that ran from danger. Wu ran toward it, blade held low. The drone's shield flared bright blue, ready to deflect her attack. At the last second, Wu slid, her body parallel to the ground. She passed under the drone's main body, and as she did, she struck upward. The blade hit the shield's lower edge where it curved to protect the drone's underside. Sparks flew. The shield flickered. Wu felt resistance through the blade, then a satisfying crunch as the tip penetrated something solid. She was already past, rolling to her feet, putting distance between herself and the machine. The drone wobbled. Its shield sputtered. Black smoke leaked from a crack in its housing. The observation decks erupted in noise. Aliens chittered, roared, and hummed in surprise. The shield was penetrated. His voice carried shock. How is this possible? Wu didn't answer. She was too busy surviving. The two undamaged drones attacked together now, coordinating perfectly. Plasma cutters extended from both, forcing her to dodge in two directions at once. She used a pillar for cover, but the drones circled it from opposite sides. Wu timed her movement, waiting until they were both committed to their angles. Then she moved between them, passing through the narrow gap. One drone swung its cutter arm. Wu didn't dodge completely. She let it pass close, feeling the heat on her skin. But as it passed, she struck with her blade, targeting the joint where the arm met the body. The shield protected the arm itself, but joints were always vulnerable. Her blade found the gap. Metal screamed against metal. The drone's arm jerked, the plasma cutter flickering. Damage, but not enough. Wu kept moving. The damaged first drone had recovered enough to rejoin the fight. All three now attacked with increased aggression. Their programming had escalated to maximum threat response. She ran for the arena's edge, not to escape but to use the barrier. The energy wall that kept her contained was solid, reflective. As a drone lunged at her, Wu dropped and rolled. The drone's plasma cutter struck the barrier and bounced back, the energy reflecting into its own shield. The shield and the reflected plasma interacted badly. Energy rippled across the drone's surface. In that moment of disruption, Wu struck. Her blade hit the shield emitter, a small protrusion on the drone's side. The metal was hardened, but her blade was harder, work strengthened from hours of shaping. The emitter shattered. The shield collapsed completely. The drone was suddenly naked, vulnerable. Wu didn't hesitate. She struck again, targeting the drone's central processor housing. Her blade punched through the thinner armor. Sparks exploded. The drone dropped, hitting the floor with a heavy crash. One down, two to go. The remaining drones abandoned all caution. They rushed her simultaneously from different angles. Wu ran, using every centimeter of the arena. She vaulted over the fallen drone, used pillars as turning points, rolled under attacks. Her legs burned. Her arms ached from gripping the blade. The cuts on her hands had reopened, making the wrapped handle slippery with blood. But she couldn't stop. Stopping meant failure. Failure meant humanity caged. A plasma cutter grazed her shoulder. Pain flared bright and immediate. The smell of burned fabric and skin filled her nose. Wu bit back a cry and kept moving. She needed a new strategy. These drones learned, they adapted. The same trick wouldn't work twice. What hadn't she used yet? What advantage did she have that they didn't expect? Human flexibility, human creativity, human willingness to do something absolutely crazy. Wu sprinted directly at one of the pillars. The drones followed, plasma cutters extended. At the last second, she jumped, planting one foot on the pillar's side and pushing off. The move launched her up and over, rotating in midair. She came down on top of one drone, her weight driving it toward the floor. Her blade struck downward, two-handed, putting all her falling momentum into the blow. The shield tried to stop her, but shields were designed for fast, light impacts, not for sustained pressure from a falling human with a shaped titanium blade. The shield held for a heartbeat, then failed. Wu's blade sank deep into the drone's body. She rode it down as it crashed, then rolled away as it exploded in a shower of sparks and burning components. 2 down, 1 left. The final drone seemed to hesitate. Its programming probably hadn't accounted for this outcome. Wu stood, blade ready, breathing hard. Blood ran down her arm from the plasma burn. Sweat dripped into her eyes. "Come on," she said quietly to the machine. "Let's finish this." The drone charged. All weapons active, shield at maximum. It was going for an all-out assault. Wu waited, watched. At the last possible moment she moved. Not away, but in an arc, a curved path that brought her alongside the drone's trajectory. Her blade struck horizontally, targeting the same weak point she'd found before. The joint where the shield emitter connected to the main body. Metal screamed. The emitter tore free. The shield vanished. Wu was already moving, bringing her blade around in a second strike. This one targeted the drone's propulsion unit. Her blade bit deep. The drone's anti-gravity failed. It dropped hard, hitting the arena floor. Before it could recover, Wu was on it, blade striking precisely into its central processor. The drone died, sparks, smoke, silence. Wu stood over the wreckage, blade still gripped tight. Her chest heaved. Blood dripped from her shoulder. Her hands were torn and bleeding, but she stood. "Time elapsed," announced, voice hollow with shock. 7 minutes, 18 seconds. Wu raised her eyes to the observation decks. Thousands of alien eyes stared back. She held up the blade and notched from combat but still intact. "You wanted to see what humans are without weapons," she called out, her voice carrying through the stunned silence. "This is what we are. We make weapons from anything, anywhere. That's not a weakness. That's what makes us human." The arena erupted in sound. Not all of it was approval, but all of it was astonishment. Wu let the blade drop, suddenly too tired to hold it. She sat down hard on the arena floor, adrenaline finally fading. His voice came from somewhere above, cheering wildly. She smiled despite the pain. Message delivered. Humanity's place in the galaxy had just changed forever. The barrier around the arena dropped. Medical personnel rushed in, a mix of species Wu didn't recognize. They surrounded her with scanning devices and concerned chittering. She waved them off at first, but one particularly insistent creature with tentacles and concerned eyes wouldn't take no for an answer. "Your shoulder requires treatment," the medic said through a translator. "Plasma burns can become infected." Wu looked at the blackened fabric around her shoulder. The skin beneath was red and blistered. Now that the adrenaline was fading, it hurt like fire. "Fine, treat it." The medic worked quickly, applying some kind of gel that immediately cooled the burn. The relief was instant. Other medics checked her hands, cleaning and bandaging the cuts from working with raw metal. Commander descended from the observation platform. The crystalline being's approach made the medic step back respectfully. Stopped in front of Wu, studying her with those geometric eyes. "Explain how you acquired the weapon," said, "not a request, a command." "I already told you. I made it from my cell floor." "That is impossible without tools." Wu laughed, a tired sound. "Impossible, you keep using that word. Do you know what it means to humans? It means not yet done." She gestured toward the blade lying nearby on the arena floor. "Pick it up. Examine it. You'll see it's the same titanium steel composite used in your station construction." Sent a subordinate to retrieve the blade. The being brought it carefully, as if handling something dangerous. Took it, turning it over in crystalline hands. "This metal was formed under high pressure and temperature during manufacture. You had neither." "I had mechanical advantage. I had understanding of material stress. I had time and motivation." Wu accepted water from a medic and drank deeply. "Everything is a tool if you know how to use it. The floor, the walls, my own body weight. Physics works the same everywhere in the universe. You can't change that." "Security footage," said to no one in particular. "Review all footage of the subject cell. I want to see this process." While communicated with station systems arrived. Guards escorted him, but he pushed past them to reach Wu. That was insane. Amazing, but insane. "Did it work?" Wu asked. "Look around. Half these aliens are terrified, half are impressed. Either way, they're paying attention now." Appeared, moving with agitated jerks of his mantis-like head. "This changes nothing. So the human can shape metal through brute force and time. This is not evidence of species-wide capability." "Show them," Wu said simply. Show us what? Asked. Show them the footage. Show them what I did step by step. Let them understand it wasn't magic or some special human power. It was knowledge applied with determination. Then ask yourself, if one human, alone and unarmed, can do this in 6 hours, what can humanity accomplish given time and resources? Was silent for a long moment. Then display the footage, all screens, let the coalition see. The arena's walls lit up with images. Every screen showed Wu's cell from multiple angles. The playback began from 6 hours before the trial. Wu watched herself on the screens, seeing what the aliens saw. A small human woman, alone in a locked room, kneeling on the floor, pressing against the metal plates. To alien eyes, it looked like nothing, just a frightened creature touching the ground. She is doing nothing, someone in the observation deck said. Wait, commanded. The footage continued. Minutes passed, then hours. The aliens watching began to notice patterns. Wu on screen kept returning to the same floor plate, kept applying pressure at the same points. The movements were too precise, too calculated to be random. She is working, an alien voice said, sounding surprised. Those are not stress responses. Those are engineering techniques. The footage showed the moment the plate shifted, showed Wu's careful leverage, using her body weight as a tool, showed the plate coming free. Impossible, said again, but his voice was weaker now. The footage continued. Wu shaping the metal, using the sleeping platform as a hammer and anvil, using the cell corners as grinding surfaces. Hours of repetitive, exhausting work. The blade taking shape slowly, methodically. She had no forge, someone said, no proper tools. Yet she cold-worked titanium alloy. Work hardening, another alien observed. This one sounded scholarly. Each impact compresses the crystalline structure, increasing hardness. Primitive but effective. Not primitive, a new voice said. An alien Wu didn't recognize stepped forward in the observation deck. This one was ancient-looking, covered in scales of deep blue. Fundamental. This is engineering at its, understanding material properties and applying force appropriately. Our ancestors did the same before we had advanced technology. The footage reached the end, showing Wu hiding the finished blade and walking calmly to her trial. The screens went dark. Silence filled the arena. Then someone began a slow, rhythmic sound. Others joined. It took Wu a moment to realize it was applause or the alien equivalent. Not all species joined in, but enough did to create a wave of sound. Turned back to Wu. I have underestimated your species. This is clear. But one demonstration does not prove species-wide capability. How do we know all humans possess this ability? Ask him, Wu pointed at. He's a pilot, not an engineer. Ask him if he could do what I did. blinked, surprised to be put on the spot. Could I shape a blade from a floor plate? Probably not as well or as fast. But could I figure out a way to survive? Yes. Every human can. We're taught problem solving from childhood. We're taught that limitations are just challenges waiting for solutions. Another human voice came from the crowd. I could do it. Dr. Shen pushed through the gathered aliens. They looked exhausted but determined. I've been trying to explain this to the coalition for weeks. Humans don't have specialized biological advantages because we don't need them. We have adaptability. We have ingenuity. Put us in any situation and we'll find a way through. Words said, claims without proof. Then test us, Dr. Shen said. Test every human you've captured. Give them different challenges, different problems. You'll see the same pattern. We adapt, we improvise, we overcome. Consider this. The coalition will deliberate. This trial has raised questions that require careful consideration. While you deliberate, Wu said, standing despite her exhaustion, remember this. You've studied our biology and found us wanting, but you missed what matters. Yes, we're fragile. Yes, we lack natural weapons. But we survived ice ages and droughts and predators specifically because we could think our way past problems. We didn't need to evolve armor when we could make it. We didn't need to evolve venom when we could make weapons. Every species here has advantages you were born with. We have advantages we create. She picked up the blade, ignoring the nervous reactions from nearby aliens. This blade didn't exist this morning. Now it does. That's what humans do. We look at what is and imagine what could be. Then we make the could be into is. If that's not worthy of coalition membership, then your coalition doesn't understand the value of innovation. As crystalline form seemed to pulse with inner light. You speak boldly for someone still technically a prisoner. Am I a prisoner? I passed your trial. By your own rules I survived. Humanity deserves consideration for membership. The trial was meant to test biological combat capability, not technological innovation. Then your trial was flawed, Wu said bluntly. You can't separate humans from their technology. It's not a crutch. It's who we are. Testing a human without allowing tool use is like testing a without allowing you to refract light, or testing without allowing him to use his enhanced vision. You'd be testing something that isn't actually the species. The blue-scaled elder from the observation deck descended to the arena floor. Up close, Wu could see the age in his movements, the wisdom in his eyes. I am historian and advisor to the coalition. The human speaks truth. We design these trials based on our own evolutionary paths. Species that developed natural weapons, natural defenses. We never considered that a species might evolve to externalize these capabilities. Dangerous precedent, argued. If we accept this, we must reconsider our entire evaluation framework. Perhaps we should, said. Perhaps this is an opportunity to grow, not a threat to fear. Was silent for long moments. Then, emergency coalition session will convene. All species representatives to the council chamber. This matter requires full deliberation. What about us? Asked the human prisoners. You will remain in observation for now, but your conditions will improve. You have earned that much. The crowd began to disperse, aliens talking among themselves in hundreds of languages. Wu heard snippets of conversation, some afraid of what humanity represented, others intrigued. A few already thinking about applications of human innovation to their own problems. As Wu was escorted out, this time without guards treating her as a threat, she passed close to. The old alien spoke softly. You have started something today, young human. Change is coming to the coalition. Whether that change is welcomed or resisted remains to be seen, but it is coming. Change is what we do best, Wu replied. His laugh sounded like wind through autumn leaves. I am beginning to understand this. Back in her cell, Wu found improvements already made. A proper bed, better lighting, a medical kit, small changes but meaningful ones. Through the barrier, grinned at her. Think they'll actually give us full membership. Wu looked at the empty space where the floor plate had been. Someone had already replaced it, but the evidence of what happened here remained in the minds of everyone who saw. They will, she said, because if they don't, we'll just keep proving ourselves until they have no choice. That's what humans do. We don't give up. We don't accept defeat. We find a way. She lay down on the new bed, her body finally registering all the pain and exhaustion. But her mind remained sharp, already thinking about the future, about what humanity would do with coalition technology, about what innovations humans would bring to galactic civilization. They thought they were testing her. Really, she was teaching them. The lesson was simple. Never underestimate a species that treats every problem as solvable. Outside her cell, the quantum meridian hummed with activity as the coalition gathered to decide humanity's fate. But Wu wasn't worried. She had already shown them what one human could do. The galaxy was about to learn what all of humanity could accomplish. The Coalition Council chamber was enormous. Wu had never seen a room so large in space. It stretched upward like a cathedral, with thousands of seats arranged in circular tiers. Each seat held a representative from a different species, some familiar from her time on the station, most completely alien to her. She stood in the center on a raised platform. Stood beside her, along with Dr. Shen and 3 other captured humans who had been brought from other holding facilities. All of them wore clean uniforms now, provided by the coalition. All bore the marks of their captivity, bruises and exhaustion, but they stood straight and proud. Commander floated in the air above them, crystalline form refracting the chamber's lights into rainbow patterns. We are gathered to determine the status of species designation human. The combat trial has produced unexpected results. We must now decide how to proceed. Rose from his seat. I maintain that the trial was violated. The human used manufactured weapons, not natural capabilities. This invalidates the results. The human used available materials and her own knowledge, countered from his position near the chamber's apex. She followed no written rule. She simply adapted to her situation. Is this not the point of the trial? To test adaptability and survival capability. Under controlled parameters, insisted. We cannot have species creating weapons during evaluation. It introduces too many variables. Variables are part of combat, Dr. Shen spoke up. Her voice carried through the chamber's acoustics. Real survival situations don't have controlled parameters. You wanted to see how humans handle pressure. You saw, we improvise, we innovate, we refuse to die quietly. A creature that looked like living liquid rose from its seat. The question before us is not whether the human female broke rules. The question is whether her actions represent typical human capability or exceptional individual skill. Test us, Wu said. All eyes turned to her. You have 6 humans here. Give us different challenges. See if the results are consistent. Consider this. What do the other humans propose? Stepped forward. I'm a pilot, not an engineer, but I can read star charts and navigation patterns. Give me limited data and I'll plot a course through unknown space. That's problem solving. Another human, a woman named who worked in agriculture, spoke next. I can design growing systems for limited resources. Show me your food production challenges and I'll find improvements. A young man named a teacher added his voice. I can analyze any educational system and find ways to make it more effective. That's pattern recognition and creative thinking. They speak of diverse skills, an alien observed, not combat ability. Combat is just problem solving under pressure, Wu said. The problem is, how do I survive? The pressure is something trying to kill me. Humans solve problems. It doesn't matter if the problem is combat, navigation, agriculture, or education. We approach them all the same way. Observe, analyze, innovate, apply. Pretty speech, said, but I require evidence, not words. Then we'll provide evidence, Dr. Shen said. Set up your tests, we'll show you. The chamber erupted in discussion. Different species argued different positions. Some saw opportunity in human innovation. Others saw threat. A few remained undecided, waiting for more data. Finally, raised crystalline hands. Silence. We will proceed with additional evaluation, but not trials of combat. We will test problem-solving capability across multiple domains. Each human will face a challenge relevant to coalition needs. They will have limited time and resources. We will observe their methods and results. Agreed, said, this is fair. Over the next 3 days, each human faced their test. Was given incomplete data about a smuggling route through an asteroid field. Using only basic mathematics and observation, he reconstructed the route and identified 3 hidden base locations. The coalition had been trying to find those bases for months. Was shown the agricultural systems on a drought-stricken colony world. She redesigned the entire water collection and distribution system using locally available materials, increasing food production by 40% in her simulation. Analyzed the coalition's training program for new species integration. He identified 12 inefficiencies and proposed a new curriculum that reduced training time while improving comprehension scores. The others performed similarly, each bringing unique perspectives to problems the coalition faced. But Wu's test was different. They brought her to an engineering bay and showed her a damaged ship component. This part is from a vessel stranded in deep space. We cannot manufacture replacements quickly enough. The crew will run out of life support before we can reach them. Can you repair it? Wu examined the component. It was a plasma regulator, cracked and leaking. The crack ran through a critical junction. Normal repairs would require specialized tools and a clean room environment. She had neither. She studied the available materials in the engineering bay. Standard tools, yes, but nothing designed for this specific repair. She looked at other components waiting for processing. Different ships, different systems. I need 2 hours, she said. They gave her 4 just to be certain. She used 3. When she presented the repaired regulator, examined it with his enhanced vision. This is impossible. The crack is still present. The crack is reinforced, Wu corrected. I couldn't remove it without proper facilities, so I worked with it. I used metal from a decommissioned thruster assembly, heated it using a standard plasma welder at low intensity, and created a molecular bond along the crack line. The repair is actually stronger than the original component because the bonded area has redundant structure. You created a new repair technique, observed. I solved the problem with what I had, that's all. That is everything, said softly. The coalition reconvened. This time the debate was shorter. Spoke formally. The evidence is clear. Humans possess exceptional adaptive capability. Their approach to challenges is unlike any species currently in the coalition. The question now is not whether they deserve membership, but what kind of membership to offer. A standard membership, said grudgingly. They have proven basic capability. I propose more than standard, said, standing with effort. His age showed in every movement, but his voice was strong. I propose we create a new category, innovation specialists. Humans would serve not just as members, but as consultants, teachers, and problem solvers across the coalition. You want to give them authority over other species. Someone objected. I want to utilize their unique talents. Every species here contributes something to the coalition. We have the strongest warriors, the fastest ships, the most advanced weapons. But when was the last time any species showed us a completely new way of thinking? The chamber went quiet. The humans see problems differently, continued. Where we see limitations, they see challenges. Where we see impossible, they see not yet done. This perspective could benefit every species here. I vote we embrace this, not fear it. Turned to Wu. If we grant full membership with special status, what do humans want in return? Wu thought about Earth, about the billions of humans who didn't yet know their fate was being decided. We want what we've always wanted, to explore, to learn, to grow. Give us access to your knowledge and we'll contribute ours. We're not interested in domination. We're interested in cooperation. Show us your problems and we'll help solve them. Share your discoveries and we'll build on them. They speak of partnership, not submission, an alien noted. Yes, Wu agreed. Humans don't submit well, but we cooperate brilliantly when treated with respect. The vote was called. Not every species voted in favor. Some still feared what humanity represented, but the majority saw opportunity over threat. Motion passes, announced. Humanity is granted full coalition membership with special designation as innovation specialists. Humans will be integrated into coalition projects across all sectors. They will serve as consultants, engineers, and strategic advisors. Grabbed Wu's shoulder, grinning. The other humans embraced, relief and joy mixing together. Dr. Shen had tears in her eyes. But wasn't finished. Wu, as the human who initiated this change, you are offered a specific position. Special Advisor to the Coalition Council on Adaptive Engineering and Combat Innovation. Do you accept? Wu looked at the blade she had made, which someone had brought to the chamber as evidence. It lay on a display pedestal, and imperfect but undeniably effective. I accept on one condition. Speak. Human engineers need to be placed throughout the coalition immediately, not just in advisory roles, working positions. We learn by doing, by seeing problems firsthand. Give us real work, real challenges. That's where we thrive. Agreed, said. We have many challenges waiting. Your species will have no shortage of work. The session ended. Wu and the others were escorted to new quarters, proper apartments instead of cells. The change was stark. Windows showing the stars, comfortable furniture, access to coalition networks. Wu stood at her window looking out at the vast station around her. Ships came and went, representing hundreds of species. Soon, human ships would join them. A message came through on the new communication device she'd been given. Her grandfather somehow already informed of events. "Proud of you, Wu. You showed them what we're made of. Come home soon." She would go home eventually. But first there was work to do. Dr. Shen visited that evening. The coalition is already requesting human expertise, agricultural problems on 3 worlds, navigation challenges in 2 sectors, a military vessel with engine trouble. They want us everywhere at once. "Good," Wu said. "Let's show them what happens when you give humans challenges instead of cages." Over the following weeks, humans spread throughout coalition space. Engineers, scientists, teachers, pilots, each bringing their unique perspective to problems both old and new. Joined a pilot training program, teaching coalition species about improvisation in combat flying. His techniques were unconventional but effective. Soon, pilots from a dozen species were requesting his courses. Revolutionized agricultural practices on 4 colony worlds, using simple techniques Earth had developed centuries ago, but which were new to alien farmers. Educational reforms were adopted by 3 major coalition institutions, improving learning outcomes across multiple species. And Wu worked with engineering teams throughout the fleet. She taught them to see materials not as fixed resources but as opportunities, to see problems not as barriers but as challenges waiting for solutions. 6 months after the trial, Wu stood in a coalition shipyard, watching the construction of the first human-designed vessel for the fleet. It incorporated human engineering principles with coalition technology. The result was something neither could have built alone. Commander approached, crystalline form reflecting the shipyard's lights. "I was wrong about your species." "You were cautious," Wu corrected. "That's not wrong, it's smart. You had no context for understanding us. And now you're learning that diversity isn't just about different body types or abilities. It's about different ways of thinking. Humans think differently. That makes us valuable." "It makes you dangerous," said, "but in the best possible way. The kind of dangerous that pushes everyone to be better." Join them, moving slowly but with purpose. The Council has been reviewing proposals from human engineers. Some are brilliant, some are insane, several are both. Wu laughed. "That sounds about right. Which ones are you approving?" "All of them," said. "We'll see which work and which fail. Either way, we learn." "That's very human of you," Wu observed. "Perhaps," said with what might have been a smile. "Or perhaps you're teaching us to think like humans, to see failure as data rather than defeat." The shipyard hummed with activity. Humans worked alongside aliens, sharing knowledge and techniques. Arguments broke out regularly as different perspectives clashed. But from those clashes came innovations neither side would have reached alone. Wu thought back to that cell, to those 6 hours of shaping metal with nothing but determination and physics. That blade had opened a door. Now humanity was walking through it, bringing their gift of relentless problem-solving to an entire galaxy. They had claimed she needed equipment. Instead, she shaped the floor plate into a perfect combat blade. And in doing so, she shaped humanity's future among the stars. The universe had tested humans and found them worthy, not because they were the strongest or the fastest, not because they had natural weapons or armor, but because when faced with impossible, they simply asked, "How do we make it possible?" And then they did the work to find out. That was humanity's true weapon, not strength or speed or technology, but the absolute, unshakable belief that every problem has a solution, every barrier has a weakness, and nothing remains impossible forever. The galaxy was beginning to understand this, and everything was about to change.